Second, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ray Bergarelli.
Stay standing for a moment of silent reflection.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Christine Bello.
Here.
Ms. Thomasina Bello.
Here.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher. Here. Ms. Victoria Boucher.
Here.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Here.
Mr. Duray.
Present.
Mr. Howard.
Here.
Ms. Politi.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Okay, item 1.3. Tonight we're going to celebrate the incredible achievements of our students in the math meet. Math challenges the mind, builds problem-solving skills, and fosters a love for learning. The students we are about to meet have demonstrated outstanding talent, dedication, and perseverance. Their hard work reflects the excellence that we strive for in our district. We are so proud of their accomplishments. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Marcy Haywood.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, executive team, and the Newburgh and Large City School District community. My name is Marcy Haywood, and I am the very proud director of elementary education. Tonight, we celebrate our fifth grade math meet participants, as well as the teachers and AIS math specialists who all made it possible. I want to extend a very special thank you to Zoe Matthews and Jesse Goodglass, who worked tirelessly to organize our math meets to ensure our scholars had a positive experience. We are so proud of the hard work and perseverance our mathematicians displayed each meet. At this time, I'd like to turn the celebration over to Mr. Jesse Goodglass.
Good evening, Madam President, Executive Board, members of the board, and school community. My name is Jesse Goodglass. I'm a math AIS specialist at GAMS Elementary School, and along with Zoe Matthews of Fostertown Elementary, we had the pleasure of facilitating this year's fifth grade math meet competitions held at the Newburgh Armory Unity Center. The elementary math meets of the Newburgh and Large City School District took place for a total of 5 sessions this school year, with the scholar-selected slogan of "Math gives us hope that every problem has a solution." They chose that. During these 5 meets, students from each of the 9 elementary buildings were placed on teams, 1 student from each building on each team, that represented the district and competed by working collaboratively to solve next-generation standards-based word problems. Our first meeting together included icebreakers, math puzzles, brain teasers, and a full practice problem to give the students a chance to see the level of the difficulty of the problems that they present and how the scoring system would work. Our second, third, and fourth meets were the actual competitions where they were accumulating points. In each meet, over the course of 2 hours at the Armory, teams worked together to work through 3 high-level math problems that included many steps to complete. While the doing of the math was the primary focus for these meets, we also wanted to emphasize the importance of math education to careers in their future. So in between each of the problems, we showed videos of Newburgh graduates who introduced themselves to the kids and how they applied math to their careers. We showcased NFA grads who are professionals in medicine, in law, sports, technology, music, and other professions. Finally, during our 5th meet, our final culminating gathering, we planned an elaborate escape room that was planned, and it was all obviously surrounding solving math problems. I'd like to thank all of our building leaders, the elementary math specialists who supported us at every one of the meets, and our director of elementary curriculum, Marcy Haywood, for their support, for their work, for providing this opportunity for all of our awesome students. Tonight, I have the distinct honor to present our district's first, second, and third place teams for the 2024-2025 school year. We will start with the third place team first. Our third place mathematicians with 274 points are the Math Wizards. Our second place mathematicians with 282 points are the M&Ms. Finally, our first place mathematicians with 285 points are the calculators. Participation certificates have been distributed to all the scholars who participated this year. Congratulations to all of our scholars for the efforts in these events, and we wish them much success in middle school and beyond. Thank you all again for having us tonight. I appreciate it.
Ms. Peterson?
I also want to give a really special thanks to the Armory Unity Center. It's a place that we have utilized for the math meets. Though I didn't get to go to the final event, which I'm pretty sad about, it's a wonderful event. And I encourage you guys to all join if you can as board members. It's a wonderful event. I did get to go to the team building exercise where they chose the names. And it's just wonderful to see students across the district coming together for the love of math. So I just kudos to the team that puts this on year after year, and they just enjoy it, and always a wonderful time. We're going to enter now into the regular portion of the meeting. So I know that there may be people that may want to exit. This may be the time, or if you want to stay, we'd be more than happy for you to stay, because we are going to be talking about budget and other things.
Next up on the agenda is item 1.4, an update from our budget consultant, Noah Rocky Smith.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. I think you said we are up next on the agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'd like to present our results of the consulting services related to your board's BOE budget consulting project, primarily carried out by Dimitri Vantilescu, one of the partners at our firm. Darren Ecabelli, a partner at our firm as well. Dimitri.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dimitri Vantilescu, partner in Rocky Smith, and our team, worked closely with the district in reviewing and providing consulting services on the district's, proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26. If we have prepared for today a PowerPoint slide, to show the results. I know I'm a co-host, but it seems I can't move the slides. Is anybody can help us? If not, then we can share our screen. If not, we can move along, discussing, the presentation. As part of the RFP and the scope of our engagement, was to provide the consulting services to review the 25-26 proposed budget. And, we work together with the district by analyzing the documents that have been provided and also discussing the assumptions and the rationale of, the projections. So,
Dimitri, maybe you can share your screen now.
yes, I'm going to do this right now.
Thank you, everyone.
So part of our engagement was to support the Board of Education developing the 25-26 budget and discuss, best practices in developing and, tracking, its budget. And, meet, with the board and the administration to obtain, the information. The work that we performed included obtaining and analyzing the documents provided by the business office, meet with key stakeholders such as your superintendent of schools, your deputy superintendent, and your assistant superintendent for business, which by the way, we want to thank them for their time and for their support. They've been very helpful explaining line by line, the district's proposed revenue and budget. So we're very thankful. Um, and as a result of this analysis, we prepared a report, that showed in two parts the proposed revenue and in the proposed budget. The documents that we analyzed included the district's audited financial statements, for the fiscal year 21-22, all the way through the fiscal year 23-24. We also had access to the administration's budget presentations to the Board of Education for the two fiscal years 23-24 and 24 and 25. But we also reviewed additional detailed reports generated from the district's financial application, such as the revenue and budget status reports, for 3 consecutive fiscal years and the current fiscal year from July 24 through March 25. And we also took into account in our analysis, the board's policies regarding budget development, monitoring, and fund balance. This slide shows you the timeline of our services. We started working with the district on March 14th, by meeting, with the administration, talking about our plan and our scope, and issuing our document request. And throughout the process, we receive the documents, we provide status report to the district. We met with management with questions about the budget development, and again, we had follow-up meetings, by receiving additional reports and updated reports, from the financial application to make it as current as possible. And a week or so, we issued a draft report, budget consulting report to the board, and today we are here to do our budget presentation. So as you can see, through our budget timeline, we have been actively, working with the district, and reviewing and assessing all the documentation that has been provided. So as key observations, from our analysis, as an outgrowth of all the meetings and all the analysis of the documents that we can provide, we're confident to say, that, the administration presented the budget development, with a lot of efforts to align with the district's, strategic plan, prioritizing its educational programs, and the information that has been provided to us and presented to the board, such as budget narratives, budget presentations, that have been very detailed and very forthcoming in presenting their assumptions and the rationales. So the district's proposed budget has increased by 15.8 million, or 4.23%, from 363 million in 24-25 to 378 million in 25-26. And based on analysis, the district's proposed budget for 25-26 is detailed, has a lot of information, as evidenced by our analysis line by line, and considers various factors, from the revenue and the expenditure side. And we have seen that the proposed budget is balanced, against the revenue and expenditures. Before I go to the projected revenue, I do want to mention a couple items, in regard to the district's process developing its budget. And it's worthwhile mentioning that, the administration, with the business office that's led by the assistant superintendent for business, they have implemented good internal controls in preparing comprehensive revenue and expenditure projections. During the budget season, the department heads and the administration work together with the business office in developing their individual or departmental, budgets, submitting, their budget, spreadsheets and, budget requests. This information is reviewed by cabinet members, the assistant superintendent for business, and the superintendent, and altogether they make decisions about the district's revenue projections along with the district's strategic plan, and that information is also presented to the Board of Education during their budget hearing and meetings. Now, for projected revenue 25-26, we see that the majority of the revenue sources are coming from state sources and the real property taxes. State sources comprise about 65% of total revenue, and real property taxes comprise approximately 28 to 30%. For the state revenue, that includes the district's foundation aid, contract for excellence, and transportation aid. The proposed state aid revenue is about 245 million. That comprise 64.87 of the proposed budget. There is an increase of 20.2 million or 9% due to increased mandated set aside for the district's contract for excellence program and services, but also increase coming from excess cost aid, private excess cost aid, and foundation aid. Um, the and there is also the real property taxes that comprise 30% of the proposed budget. The proposed real property taxes are 113.6 million. And it's worth to mention here that there is real property tax revenue increases for the upcoming fiscal year. So for everybody to know that the real property taxes are a primary local funding sources, for school districts. The tax growth is, governed by the New York Property Tax Cap Law, and limits the annual tax levy increases, to the lesser of 2% of the rate of inflation, unless of a 60% supermajority voter approval. In On the expenditure side, for the projected, 25-26 fiscal year, we see that the majority of the expenditures are coming, through salaries, 168.3 million, comprised, 44% of the proposed budget, followed, by benefits, 112.7 million, approximately, 30% of the budget, and also from contractual and other, services, 58.2 million, approximately, 15%. For the salary expenses, as I said, they comprise approximately 44% of the proposed budget. There is an increase of 9.5 million. This increase is due to contractual salary increases and additional positions. When we talk about salaries, the majority, that driven this increases is in lots of programs, for the district, um, and includes like the instructional programs for students with disabilities, programs, for English language learners, operations of the plant, guidance, social workers, security, and general support. Also for benefits, that comprise approximately 30% of the district's proposed budget, there's an increase of 5.5 million. This increase is due to increases in retirement contributions, healthcare premiums, Social Security taxes, and Medicare contributions. Um, from our experience, working with other school districts, we see similar increases in these types of employee benefits, primarily, with the healthcare premiums. We also see, a big component of the district's proposed expenditures budget includes contractual and other expenses. Approximately 15% of their proposed budget. Within, these, budget account codes, we do see a net decrease of 1.3 million due to increase of contract-based instructional personnel and treasury services. But we do see some increases in transportation, programs for students with disability, and maintenance of plant. Um, Now, there's also another component for BOE service expenses, 25.7 million of the proposed budget. There's an increase of 5.4 million due to increase of tuition, BOCES run, special ed classrooms, and related services. Now, for BOCE services, you should know that these services cover support services coming from BOCES for, special education, for essential data processing, for instructional support, student support, and other technology services. So again, to conclude, with the presentation, we do want to highlight, that the district, developed a very comprehensive, analysis of their revenue and expenditure projections, and it is balanced, so that's very important, for this size of a school district, $378 million. And we do want to, applaud the administration team. We saw that, by working together and, the communications that we had and the explanations that, they provided to us when we were asking, specific questions on specific, budget account codes. So if there's any questions, from the Board of Education, we'll be happy to, hear them and clarify.
Does anyone have any? Oh, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. How would you assess the administrative adherence to best practices in the budget development, especially regarding the use of zero-based versus rollover budgeting from one year to the next? Can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you for your question. And this speaks about the budget development process. So in the fiscal year 23-24, we did discuss this with the administration. That they develop a zero-based budget approach, and they there were certain elements here, that the district, took that approach, and they took a ground up, and a zero, reliance on prior year allocations. Uh, there were certain also programs such as the contract for excellence that they had to realign, their budget account codes, and be more transparent in regarding to the resources and the operational needs, for these programs. Um, when they developed this in 23-24, the zero budget approach, they did a comprehensive analysis of these types of staffing needs and allocations, and aligned that with the board priorities. At that time, we saw that there was a 2.4 tax levy increase, but there were a minimum number of layoffs, and there was some reduction in program costs, again based on the district needs. Now, in the following year, 24-25, you know there was the development of the rollover budget. So because of these changes, the purpose of the rollover was to use that information based on the most updated needs and allocations. The development of the rollover budget will to continue those operations, um, and those included contractual salary increases and employee benefits, or other contractual services, and so it is an approach that at times, again from our experience, that we see districts take in developing their budget, especially when there's some specific reporting needs, for specific programs that are funded, by the state.
Mr. Dre?
Sure, thank you. I'm just focusing on two items that
I'm trying to understand, and I've asked the question before, but I need another answer. Excess cost aid and private excess cost aid, 24 to 25, was just shy of $5 million on each line item. And then when you printed your report, I saw that that's the lowest, a very low amount compared to the previous 3 years. And now, both of those line items respectively are 13,194 and 13 million. So those two line items add about $17 million out of the $19 million difference between the two budgets. Just if you could explain why so low in 24-25 and why so high in 25-26? Where's that money come from?
Right. So it is, we did discuss this as well, with the management team, and we do recognize that it was over 100% increase of, these specific revenue line items like excess cost aid increased by 8.4 million, private excess cost aid increased by 8.3 million. Now, the these types of revenue and aid, come, to the district because of the increase of, services and expenses associated with serving students, with disabilities and special ed. So, because of the increase of, the, mandated needs, and the services provided, and these are driven primarily by the special education department and the CSE meetings and, the individual education programs that, the district needs to provide, you know, from that point, the district has also the ability to request reimbursement for these services, um, and submit claims, to the state.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Peterson?
So when we do projections from revenue, and whatever I don't answer, Mrs. Roaring will fill in. There's two ways you can project what the state, and you can project your actuals. Customarily, we are told to project by what we're seeing in our state aid runs. However, when looking at our revenues and when looking at the amount of students that we were servicing for special ed, we saw that those two things were not aligning and that there needed to be an adjustment made. Ms. Roaring?
So what we have seen over the last couple of years is that the governor's state aid runs, even after the legislative budget, continue to estimate us around 9 million in a combined excess cost aid. And in actuality, we're receiving over $20 million a year. Our number for 24 was over 26 million. So we're looking at our historical experience at this point, not the governor's state aid projections, to inform our excess cost aid, because we continue to realize an increase in this area that does not align with what the aid runs suggest.
And as the auditors have just stated, about 3 years ago, we did a zero-based approach. And a part of that approach was to really look at actuals, because the data that we were getting was not, we wanted to make sure the data was valid. And we wanted to look at every expense and every piece of revenue that we got into the district to make sure that we were actualizing it appropriately. So this is a part of us also looking at our district fiscally and starting the long-term planning surrounding how we can look at our budgetary needs and capital projects.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So, do you feel that the planned use of fund balance is a sustainable and fiscally responsible approach? If not, what would you recommend for us to do or undertake in that area?
So yeah, to repeat your question, is the usage of the fund balance, and is it appropriate, from a sustainability perspective? From our experiences, the district, has been in compliance, with the general fund balance, and the real property tax law, for a number of years. and the district's fund balance, has been strong, and the utilization of it, to help the district continue to support the programs and also, implement the 0% tax increase, is advisable, as we see many times, from the state controller's audit reports, when they review other school districts and, comment about their fund balance management process. And also from our experience, we have seen this practice happening, with other clients, by managing, their fund balance along with their reserves and the needs, future needs, for the district, based on actuary services.
No more questions?
Oh, I have quite a few.
Oh, Mr. Howard, go ahead.
Sorry. So your report notes that the absence of long-range financial forecasting and reserve funding strategies. What impact does this have on fiscal accountability and transparency for the district?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of your question? Long term
I said, what impact does this have on fiscal accountability and transparency for the district?
for transparency for the district. Okay.
Correct. The absence of long-range financial forecasting.
Right, right. So what we observed, and actually, applaud, the district's efforts, by starting with the zero, budget approach, and then the rollover approach, and what your deputy superintendent said, by making sure that all the budget account codes and line items, are based on, real facts, and the departmental needs, and overall, like, its development. We believe, overall the district has, a very strong, balance sheet, that will help, in the future, especially, when, through our conversations with, other clients, and, with ASBO, we're all mentioning about, rainy days, and, uncertainties. So we believe, that the district, um, from a transparency point of view, has, done a remarkable job. Please note that we did look at every, like, single budget line item, and we assessed, the prior year budgets and the actuals, and, we believe, that the rationales and the assumptions, were reasonable. And going forward, with this practice, this internal control process, we strongly believe it will continue, and it will, have the district in a very good financial position.
Okay.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. So one area of my concern is the fixed portion of the budget, which is salaries and benefits. And they're not going to go down. They're going to probably increase. I feel our workers deserve to be paid. Are there any things that you can help us with controls or projections, put projections in place to help us monitor those two figures as we go forward? Because they will be increased. Are there any recommendations, suggestions that you can give us as a district that we could be doing to help alleviate problems going forward?
So from the salary line items, most of these budget account codes are driven by, the bargaining unit agreements, and, there are detail, around, the terms and, the salary increases, each year, these individual units will have. Now, along with that, and like, the applicable headcount, drives also, the employee benefits, like but um, to have a good control, surrounding, these areas, what we recommend our clients is to have um, a formal way of tracking, their headcounts, by department and any vacancies, which I believe your district already, is implementing this. But through our conversations, with the district, and and through the development process that they explained, that they do discuss these headcounts and these salaries, with the department heads, because they want to make sure, whoever is positioned at, each department, each building, is actually needed, to support, the district's programs. So that's, one control, that the district has, to manage, the future budgets as well. But on the benefit side, there's some items that, the district does not have control, such as, the, health insurance rates, because, those are driven, by the insurance carrier. So, we track those, we have some, assumptions and rationale, but we are very dependent on, information that are coming outside of the district.
Ms. Peterson?
So just for the board and the community to know, this is my 6th budget cycle with the district. And about 2 budget cycles, this is where 3 budget cycles ago, we started the zero-based approach. And prior to the zero-based approach, or alongside with that, we also did a position control audit with human resources, where we look through every position to ensure all staffing. As a part of future budget developments, the other things that we did was we made sure that our stakeholders were in every part of the process. So principals are an active part of budget development. They come, they verify their staffing, they give us their concerns, what they need, not only operationally for their actual plant of their building, supplies, programs that they are looking to promote within their building, but we also ensure that staffing-wise, that they are also getting their needs met. And every principal meets with executive cabinet to give and review those recommendations. And this is a process we started about 2 years ago to ensure we had transparency in our budget and that those decisions just did not lie with central administration, but principals had an active leadership and budget development for their buildings and for the students.
Anyone else with questions? Mr. DeRay? No? Well, thank you very much. Oh, Ms. Peterson.
Just as a part of this, there's an extreme amount of undertaking to coordinate with an auditor. So I just want to personally thank Laura Graziano, Kevin Rothman, Todd Curry, the assistant superintendents and principals who took time out of their day to meet with the auditors, directors, and most importantly, I want to give a special thank you to Kimberly Roaring.
We do want to thank, you as well, Onyx and your team, and Kimberly, Dr. Braun. Thank you for meeting with us. Thank you for all the scheduling. Thank you for sharing us all this information. It was truly a good collaborative approach, and it helped us, to get a very good understanding of the district's budget, the development process, and all these numbers. Thank you for helping us, making this a successful project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I do have a question. I just didn't want them on when I have the question.
Is there anything else? Any other questions?
No.
No.
All right, thank you again, everybody, and we hope you enjoy your night.
Mr.
Can I
DeRay?
go down? I printed this out this morning, and the one I'm looking at tonight is different. Was there an update posted somewhere during the day?
Yeah, it was sent to you last week by Dr. Bond, and then Board Docs was updated today.
So the one on the board docs was not right?
The one on Board Docs was updated today, yeah. The board received the one that was on Board Docs today. The board got that last week.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 2, public comment on agenda items. Mr. McCoy, who do we have to speak? Mr. DeRay?
Just a comment that I don't want to turn into a resolution, but someone in the audience last time made a comment about people being on their cell phones or being on their computers, things like that. I would just ask that the people that come here, it's very difficult to speak in front of a crowd, and I think we owe them our attention. Thank you.
The first person signed up to speak tonight on agenda items is Miss Angela Paul Gato.
Good evening. My name is Angela Polghetto. I'm living in the town of Newburgh, and I'm a businesswoman in the city of Newburgh, and I have 2 students in the district of Newburgh. Today, the item that I wanted to talk about is the 6th, I think, about the resolution to rescind board liaison to meet with representative of the high school student council. I'm not going to stay too long on that. I just want to understand a little bit more if it's going to happen, not happening, why. That's my main question. I think it's important for the board, all of you, to meet the students, I think at the beginning or maybe after the vote, after the election, when we know who are the new members, and then for all of you to talk with the students. So I think that's more of a question of knowing what the students want about that. It's funny that last time there was a News 12 that talked all report about that issue, which is not a real issue. It shouldn't even be on the agenda. It's nothing. It's easy to resolve. And I think, the idea is that, yes, the board should meet with the students, and we should ask the students what they need. And I don't think it should be done one person right before the election. It feels like there's an agenda there, and I'm just not comfortable with that. So that was just all I need to say about that.
The next person signed up is Miss Tracy Wallace.
Thank you. Tracy from City of Newburgh. I would like to speak about, number 6, about someone going into the schools to speak to the students. I think that we should take the opportunity to not just address the 3 students. I think it's a great opportunity for maybe the board members to get together and go into each of the buildings and teach the students as a whole. I don't think this is I think the students really don't know what's going on here. I don't know that they have a voice. And I think that the students should recognize themselves as their own advocates. And I think this is a great opportunity for the board to take advantage of that, and not just one person. I agree with what you're trying to do, but I think this should be an opportunity for the board to come together and resolve their differences, to educate the kids in all the buildings on their voice. I think you should take this opportunity to work with each other and your administration in each of the buildings. I don't think this should be a quarrel or on the agenda. I agree with the last speaker. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was the budget. Projected budgets are so confusing. It's confusing because I also advocate in Albany and advocate for the New York State budget to come through. They're always late with their budget, and the schools have to project the budget. And I've heard litigation not only with this school budget, many school budgets are having this difficulty because New York State can't get their stuff together. We can't get our budget together. But as far as projections and what the students need, I do know I see a big difference in the way that my kids were educated within the schools. And what I see is that when my daughters were in school about 10 years ago, the teachers stayed after school with them many times, and they had many difficulties. And when I asked about why can't we have more teachers stay after school, they were saying that the teachers weren't being paid for after-school hours, they didn't have the time to go after-school hours. I was on PTO or PTA in Bonneville many, many years ago, and the complaint of the parents at that time, and this was 10 years ago, was, I believe, the same that we're bringing up today, is that yes, we need teachers' assistants, but we do need to also employ teachers to go into these after-school programs so that they can educate the children that are struggling. You know, it's not just in the classroom. My child gets pulled out of the classroom for intervention services for reading and math, but when he's getting pulled out of classes that he should be in. You know, and these are rotating classes, so if you don't know what AIS is or intervention is, they get pulled out every cycle for reading and math, depending on how much your child how much your child needs. So my child is oftentimes pulled out, and then when he goes back in the classroom, he's distorted, he's not on the same page, you know, and it's just not consistent. So now my son, I know I have 4, but my youngest one is in ICT class. I didn't even know he was in ICT at first. I thought it was a regular classroom because he doesn't have an IEP, but the school noticed that he was on the same intervention for years. I have tried to get him an IEP that was denied several times because of the way that the kids are being graded on the IEPs, which my child always landed on the average. So because he always landed on average, he was unable to get the services that he needed. And now he still cannot write properly. And I ask what's going on. I check in with my kids' teachers every 3 months. I don't have to, but I do because my kids say okay and fine. And to me, that's not okay. I need to know what they're doing. So every 3 months, I go in and I check in with all their teachers. And I'm like, hey, my kid doesn't know the basics of coordination. What do we do? They're like, yeah, most of these kids are having real difficulties with their basics. So we understand that they need basics that they're missing as far as coordination, as far as writing their homework down, as far as coordinating their materials. And I really think that if we can make an effort in paying teachers to work in the after-school programs, especially K through 5, that really, really need it, I'm asking the board to look at those ideas as well. Thank you.
Ms. Dawn Fuchek.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Fuchek. I'm a resident of the town of Newburgh. I'd like to speak tonight, this evening, regarding agenda item 4.2. In the interest of transparency, I respectfully ask that the restructuring plan for administration be shared publicly. Additionally, I'd appreciate a more detailed explanation of the proposed budget, especially around staffing. Upon reviewing the budget presentation that's going to be presented tonight, I noted staffing additions and reductions following. Additions of 36.6 positions to the NTA, 2.5 positions in the CSEA, 5 in the NSAA, and actually 7 in the central office or executive level. While not noted on the chart on page 3 of the additions for the budget, there are 3 executive directors for exceptional learners and 3 executive directors for C&I. And it's not noted here, but if I am correct, those are executive level positions. Reductions are at 7 positions in the NTA, 1 in the CSEA, 11 in the NSAA, and 1 at the executive central administration level. It appears from examining this that 2 directors of exceptional learners and the director of pupil personnel are being replaced by 3 new executive directors for exceptional learners. Similarly, the positions of director of elementary education, director of middle level education, and director of humanities seem to be replaced with 3 new executive directors for curriculum and instruction. However, the financial impact of these changes, the dollar amounts associated with each addition and reduction, aren't listed on the chart, and I think that including this information would be very helpful to the public and this community. I also noticed that certain key roles are not accounted for in the reductions listings. Who will now be responsible for the duties of Director of Communications, the Director of Planning and Accountability, the Director of STEM, and especially the Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners. These are critical roles that directly affect our students. Let's not overlook the principals and assistant principals who received letters and were subsequently told you can resign, apply for a position, or be terminated. While their positions may not have been eliminated on paper, the individuals holding them were, meaning these reductions don't show up in this budget documentation. Are we to assume that the individuals from the NSAA that received these letters will be replaced by other individuals? Why is that? It seems clear that many of these cuts, whether listed or not, involve eliminating existing positions and creating new ones. This process appears to target individuals more than roles. Therefore, I ask, why are these changes being made? What is the overall plan driving this restructuring? How will these changes benefit our students? And most importantly, how will this plan improve student outcomes? Secondly, just for a point of clarification, after hearing the report from the budget consultant, I'm wondering why on page 6 of the budget consultant's report, the proposed budget shows a change from last year of $15,380,980, and on the district's budget presentation on page 6, the proposed budget shows a year-to-year increase of $19,712,055. Thank you.
There's nobody else signed up on agenda items. If anybody else would like to speak on agenda items, please come to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Matteo Dotto. I'm the co-principal of Newburgh Free Academy. I've been in the district, besides the fact that I'm a 1982 NFA grad, 36 and a half years. In January, 14 of those years in the classroom. So I come to you, I don't have anything prepared, so I'm going to speak from the heart. The biggest concern I have is the fact that 10 positions, speaking for our unit, 10 positions are proposed reductions. And I think the misunderstanding about what directors specifically on this list do is connection to kids. We hear all the time about how administrators are so far away from students, but they're really not. They might not have a direct impact on them day to day and with them next to them day to day, but they do have an impact. They work with principals, assistant principals, supervisors. They work with teachers on a single day basis throughout that process that I just described. I'm emotional about that because not only am I speaking for my colleagues, but I'm speaking for my students, or some of the students are behind me right now. The impact that they have on students is not a budget item. The impact that they have on students is not something that's on that list that the accountants gave to you. It's about what's here, and it's about the work that they do every single day. I know there seems to be a plan looking at reduction with additions, but we don't know the plan. With all due respect, we do not know the plan. And there should be communication regarding that. This is not just cutting one position. This is not making changes to one position or one department. This is vast changes impacting many departments, pre-K to 12. We talked about graduation rate. We talk about improvement. All of those things we hold accountable. We are held accountable to that. But I hope that in executive session, when you guys are talking to each other, that it is not a fight. It is not a battle, but a conversation about the true impact that administrators, in addition to teachers, because there's teacher cuts in here, make on kids every single day. Every single day, we impact students. Spend the day with us. Walk in the shoes of a principal. Walk in the shoes of an assistant principal. Walk in the shoes of a director, because you won't know that unless you walk in those shoes. I was told a long time ago that why are you going to the dark side? Did anybody know what that means? It's a negative connotation already, because you go from being a teacher, and remember, I was in the classroom for 14 years, and I decided to make a bigger impact, thinking that was my dream, to make a bigger impact on our students. And that's why I became an administrator. That's why these guys back there became administrators. You know, part of my job tonight was to, because like I said, I'm not prepared. I came to speak from the heart, is to read you a letter that you all received, that the Board of Education received from our Saney's attorney. I can't read the whole letter now because I'm down to a minute, but I'm going to highlight a few items. Please make sure that you understand that it is not about retaliation, that it is not about making a point, the 5 versus the 4, or the 4 versus the 5. It's about what you're going to do to make the right decision for our students, because ultimately that's the impact. Remember that word, impact. What is the impact that you're going to have in your decision that you make on our students? That is my message to you. I think 3.5 decades means something. It's not about Matt Dotto, it's about all of us, and about those kids right there. Thank you.
If anybody else would like to address the board on agenda items, please come to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamika Stewart, a resident of the city of Newburgh. I just wanted to point out something about the budget that's on the resolution. I want to commend everybody here because the message that I heard from the auditor sound very good. It did not sound like what we were told, that there was financial issues or mismanagement of funds or any financial improprieties. That sounded like a good audit or report from the audit. So hearing the things that were being talked about here at the board and the reasons why the suspended superintendent was suspended for, it just sounds like there is two different worlds colliding. That audit and the report from the audit didn't sound like it was supposed to be the reasons why this acting superintendent was, the superintendent was suspended. So I'm gonna pick up on what my previous administrator did. And this is the letter from the board, and I'm gonna read, a letter from Saney's, and I'm gonna read it to you because I think the public and I want to make sure the board understands. It says, members of the board, we represent the Newburgh Supervisors and Administrators Association and its members in matters related to their employment with the Newburgh Enlarged School City District, and in connection with NSAAS's status as a public employee union under the Public Employees Fair Employment Act, the Taylor Law. I am writing to address the threatened termination of roughly 16 NSAA members by Acting Superintendent Lisa Bond on or about March 19, 2025, at Dr. Bond's direction,
Ma'am,
Okay. I won't say a name. Is that the name?
exactly.
Okay, no worries. At the direction of the acting superintendent, approximately 16 members of NSAA received notices that they were to report to a meeting with Human Resources for disciplinary meetings. No notice was given of the topic of the meeting, and these NSAA members were not afforded a reasonable opportunity to have union representation at these meetings as is required under the Taylor Law. The same day, these NSAA members were informed that the meetings were being rescheduled but have not been to date. It is NSAA's understanding, learned through conversations between union leadership and both the acting superintendent and human resources, that the purposes of these meetings were to offer the affected members of the option of either resigning or in some cases accepting a demotion or facing termination. No performance-related basis for termination or reassignment of the affected members were offered. In fact, these members all have exceptional records of service to the district. Based on the exceptional service of the affected NSAA members, the haphazard, ill-considered, and unlawful manner in which these directive letters were delivered, and the acting superintendent's employment history in the district, including her interactions with the affected members during that time, it is NSAA's position that the acting superintendent's motive for directives of these letters are adverse employment actions to be taken to retaliate against these members, among other things, for their protected union activity. Please be advised that should the district proceed with the termination or demotion of any of the aforementioned NSAA members, SANES and NSAA will take a legal action against the district to challenge any such retaliatory and discriminatory action and to seek whatever additional remedies of damages as may be appropriate. The public should understand that the actions of the board is not only putting administrators out of work, which is grossly negligent, it is also it's putting us in legal liability. You guys don't pay that. It comes out of our taxpayer dollars. It doesn't come out of your dollars. So to make decisions that are based off of everybody in here's dollars and pockets, I think that is absolutely negligent. Our administrators are here. None of them, one of which is my daughter's principal, is an amazing principal. He has a great record and has great respect from the people that are there, and to make this a personal thing, because that's what it is not based off a budget, it's personal. It is absolutely negligent.
Board on agenda items, please come to the podium. Okay, we'll move on. First person signed up to speak on non-agenda items, Mr. Mark Levinstein.
Thank you. Madam President, Madam Acting Superintendent, board members and central office staff. My name is Mark Levinstein, and I live in the town of Newburgh, and I wish to speak to you about some recent decisions by the school board and how it affects the finances of our district and our taxpayers. I would like to begin with the total salaries that the district is paying for the services of a superintendent. So, Madam President, I ask if the following is correct. The district is paying the salary of a superintendent who the board majority suspended. The district is paying the salary of an acting superintendent. The district is also paying the salary of a deputy superintendent whose contract stipulates that if the superintendent is unavailable, the deputy superintendent would fill in for the superintendent. I believe that the salaries for These 3 superintendents add up to over $800,000 a year. Madam President, can you confirm that the district has a contract with an auditor for over $300,000 for forensic audits? This forensic audit seems to be a conclusion in search of evidence. $300,000 to try to find evidence to support your suspicion that the superintendent did something majorly wrong. Madam President, another item that will financially affect the NECSD are the district decisions being brought forward in terminating employees. These decisions are just screaming, sue us. We all are aware of the payout paid to a previous superintendent. Maybe many are not aware that the reason for that payout was because of the bad board behavior of one board member. The current superintendent, who is suspended with pay, certainly has grounds to sue the district. Madam President, do you think that the arbitrary firing of a dozen or so administrative employees without cause or reason will not bring additional litigation against the Newburgh Enlarged City School District? Madam President, another curious decision of this board is regarding the creation and filling of another position and layer of authority in central office. The creation of an associate superintendent layer seems to be against what this board majority ran on. I think anyone thoroughly following the workings of this Board of Education understand the true reasons. These and other decisions by the board's majority members will unnecessarily cost taxpayers and the district millions of dollars. Thank you.
Mr. John Doré.
John Doré, resident and homeowner, town of Newburgh. Good evening. I'm speaking from the podium this evening as a proud member of the Newburgh Enlarged City School District. In 1996, Judy Scheinlin, better known as Judge Judy, authored a best-selling book titled "Don't Pee on My Leg and Tell Me It's Raining." Continuing the metaphor to describe the recent voting records of some board members, along with the chaos being caused in the administrative ranks by rumors and misinformation regarding staffing cuts or terminations, which have now spilled out into the community, my legs are soaked. Let's begin with some public record facts. Fact, on February 2, 2024, in the middle of the budget process, 4 former board members, Darren Stridiron, Deborah Boulay, Ryan Lamar, and Renee Green, I already talked to Matt. I'm in good shape. The 4 former board members who quit, I'll take a few seconds back too, quit the school board I did my homework, with no notice, resulting in major disruption in the 24-25 budgeting process. Not fact, but opinion based on research, these same ex-members have created a shadow board with the front known as the Clear Choice Coalition. Fact, one more board member, former board member, has 2 surrogates on the board, 2 of her daughters. Fact, on May 30th, 2024, there were 3 new Clear Choice members seated on the board for the second budget vote. Not one of them voted no on the 24-25 budget. Check the minutes. Fact, on June 27, 24, the new interim superintendent was reassigned by the board from her position as Bombville School Principal to pre-kindergarten principal at Gidney. Fact, on August 13th, the board considered a resolution to return the now interim superintendent to the principal of Bombville School. The motion failed with 2 members of the Clear Choice Coalition voting to not return her to Bombville. Why? Fact, on January 28, 2025, the board voted to appoint the current interim superintendent as interim superintendent of the district. Fact, on this, 2 members of the Clear Choice group, who apparently were not comfortable with her running an elementary school during the vote on August 13, suddenly felt she'd be an incredible leader for one of the largest inner city school districts in New York. Fact, on January 30th, during a news interview, the interim superintendent is quoted saying, "We need to do better." And underneath my watch, that's what I plan to do. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be the example, end quote. Example of what? Does taunting administrators with letters of discipline that are rescinded but not really rescinded, and then putting a metaphoric hit list of administrators out into the community look better? Anyone in the community is capable of realizing it's not a coincidental list of names. It is a surgically targeted list. There are guidelines from the State Board of Education regarding the duties of an interim superintendent. Number one, maintaining continuity of leadership, ensuring that the district continues to operate smoothly. That's happening. Providing stability, offering consistent leadership to staff, students, and the community during times of change, thereby minimizing disruptions. Also happening. Are any parts of these two guidelines being followed? It appears that the choice of the interim superintendent is to do 100% the opposite of the top state guidelines. The result is chaos, not order, and the entire community is aware of it. What special skill set is required to dismantle a district? Fact, on March 12th, the fiscal hawks, including the interim superintendent and 5 members of the Clear Choice Coalition, created out of thin air an associate superintendent position paying $220,000 per year for the then acting head of HR. Fact, on April 8th, the fiscal hawks were back at work again, hiring an assistant superintendent of human resources for $212,000. The person selected shows their entire experience on LinkedIn as being involved in special education. There is no mention of HR experience at all. Fact, a former board member was on the interview committee. Why? Why would a person with no association with a school district who had previously quit her position on the board be involved with selecting high-level personnel that have their contacts with the board? Is the community really supposed to believe this is rain? Are we supposed to believe that an extensive search was made to locate a qualified candidate for a $212,000 position? Or is it more likely that the search, and I'll use that term loosely, was pre-intended results? I need to compliment the Clear Choice Coalition. Their actions have made it easy to make a very clear choice in the upcoming election. I'll stand down now and dry my legs.
Mr. Q and Nina Presley.
Hello, Q and Nina Presley. So we're here to discuss the possible elimination of the Bonneville principal. We have 4 kids in the Bonneville Elementary School. Our first daughter in 4th grade, 2 sons in 2nd, and our last daughter in 1st grade. From what we have been told, district wants to eliminate about 16 administrative positions district-wide to free up funds for classroom support to hire more people. To be honest, hiring extra people for the school will not help without a strong leadership or a current Bonneville principal. Our oldest daughter has been in Bonneville since 2018 and has gone through 4 principals, and now may be going on a 5th. This is unfair to the children in Bonneville School. Our kids feel safe, and they have trust for our current Bonneville principal. They know they can stop by her office anytime they need to. Her door is always open, and they will see her in her classroom or walk through the school. How are they to continue this trust and feel safe if they keep changing the principal with another new face? This is very confusing to them. You want to remove our principal that has been in our district for 25 years and that has many accomplishments and a leader to our children. To just hire extra staff, unfortunately, we see a lot of people in the school district lazing about. I honestly am not sure why they're even being paid to do nothing. But instead, you're targeting our kids' principal that has made many great changes in Bonneville and brought new life to our school and children. We are honestly disgusted, and so are so many other parents that I have spoken to about how our district is currently being ran and how it affects our children in a negative way. What is your plan to get rid of? What is your plan if you get rid of our principal or any of the other administrators? We were finally seeing the light with our current Bonneville principal that has brought so much positivity to our school. We hope you all see how much Bonneville's kids need our current principal. Let our kids keep the trusted face they see. We thank you for the time and pray that you keep our current Bonneville principal. The decision is easy because it's for our children and it's our great principal. Tells our children every morning there's nothing to it but to do it.
Miss Riley Maida.
Hello everyone, my name is Riley Maida. I'm a senior at NFA Maine. You've heard from me before at the board's previous meeting, and I'm sure you'll hear from me again. I'm once again standing here with other members of the NFA student body, all in support of the same cause and ideas. As students, we have several questions for you, most of which we've asked before and you've left unanswered. There has been no more information on the potential firing of 17 district employees, firings which will almost certainly result in more lawsuits being filed against this district, which already has several pending. The board majority ran as a coalition, votes together on almost every issue. They talked about the need for transparency, and yet none of us know why these administrators are being targeted. The acting superintendent just recently got her job, and the only board members asking why these people are going to lose their jobs are being ignored by this acting superintendent. This goes back to the point I keep making about the image of this district, and how this board is a detriment to that image. None of this is normal. The fact that the majority of the board refused to even look up and acknowledge the community members who speak during public comment is not normal. Neither is the fact that the acting superintendent is making these kind of drastic decisions that have a huge impact on the lives of students and teachers in this district. Even in a News 12 article that could have so easily focused on the students and our support of our administrators was overshadowed by the infighting and division that is ever-present part of this board. This toxic environment is just perpetuated by some members of this board's majority and their endless negativity about our school district and the terrible example they set with their behavior on social media. This is not the image a school board should have, not in the news, not on social media, not at all. We as the students of this district have to deal with comments online or from our peers who mock our school. Much of this negative reputation stems directly from your behavior and your decisions. You're not working to help this district, and in all honesty, it seems like the majority of you are working against it and would like to see it fail. We live in such a rich and beautiful community, and I've lived in Newburgh my entire life, attended Meadow Hill and NFA, and I now both work and volunteer at the Newburgh Armory and Unity Center. I care deeply about this district, and it's hurtful to so many people to see a board and interim superintendent who don't approach their jobs with the care and compassion for the district they claim to represent, and the professionals who keep it running are being treated as disposable because of the whims of the current leadership. My other main concern is once again about your proposed meeting with the student council and other members of the student body, which is on the agenda this week for the third time. First, I would like to respond to a comment that the board president made during last week's meeting after we all spoke, where she said something along the lines of, we don't have to schedule a meeting with the entire board and the students because the students who spoke here asking for it do not represent the majority of student opinions. I have a question in response to that, and it's how would you know? You sat here during the last meeting not listening to us, as well as banging your gavel at the senior student council president as he was trying to finish his speech. More than one of us who spoke last week are the students you were supposed to be meeting with. And finally, I don't know how you would know any student's opinion since you were one of the members pushing back against the proposal to have the students meet with the entire board. It's a small favor we're asking of you, and it's to have our voices heard in our schools and in our district. I don't think inviting members of student council and student body to a meeting or to an executive session with all board members is too much to ask. I don't think asking you to hear our concerns is too much to ask, and I don't think that practically begging you to behave like mature adults is too much to ask. If I could take a moment to compare the divisiveness of this board to the same air of division that's currently across our entire country. You may often hear the phrase, it's not an argument between left and right, it's an argument between right and wrong. I think the same sentiment applies here. This is not an argument between minority and majority. This is an argument between personal interests versus what is right and what is beneficial to the students, teachers, and the district as a whole. I once again ask that this entire board put your petty grievances and personal agendas aside and please consider the statements that mine and my peers have made tonight. Thank you.
Miss Angela Paul Gato.
Hi again. This is tough to go right after that, but okay. Yeah, I'm going to change a little bit the subject on all that because I did talk about all that in the past, so I'm going to change a little. Just wanted to talk about, so again, I'm Angela from the town of Newburgh, and I do have two kids in the system, in the Newburgh School District, and they're both very good students. They're both honor rolls, really proud. Even with my French accent, my pronunciation, they're still doing great in school, so this is good. So I just want to say I was disappointed by one of the past meeting slides you had concerning the science of reading. I personally think the issue is not the program or the curriculum itself. Those presentations are just fairy dust and will probably help a little bit, but it's not necessarily resolving the main issue. Knowing that all our kids are different means that no curriculum will be a perfect fit for all of them. There's no unique solution, but maybe instead of always criticizing the district and Newburgh itself, we should focus on what good they have to offer. Yes, Newburgh has difficulties, and no one here is ignoring this fact. I know one of you, contrary to one of your speakers that talked some times ago with a very condescending tone, thinking that nobody cares, we do care, and we're not ignoring the problem that there is problem in Newburgh. But constantly pointing the issue without giving a solution is not helping at all. If there's important issues, such as a gunshot outside the school, please reach out to the local organizations, such as SNUG, who are trained to talk to our kids, to reassure them, and to listen to them. As a community, we need to support our kids. We need to care about all of our children, suburban and inner city children. Around 2 years ago, there was an issue at the football game, and my son was in there, and thanks to Ray, who was there and saved my son and a couple of other kids, putting them behind the car, helping them. This is the type of action we need. We need people that care about all of our children, not just theirs, and we all can do better on that. So apart from those very sad incidents, we need to focus on what good Newburgh has to offer. We should be promoting all the after-school programs. There is NFA, but there's also the library, the Boys and Girls Club, the Armory, Dandelions of Flowers too, and a lot of amazing organizations that offer those after-school help. Public schools are amazing, but the large number of students is the inconvenience and can create a lack of attention on each student. As parents, we also need to be involved and help our kids study, but not every parent can be as involved as they would like due to work. I went to see the movie The Right to Read that you had at NFA, which Dandelion of Flowers 2 presented as well a year ago at the Showtime Cinema, and I couldn't make it, so I was happy I could see that one. And that was really confirming what I think. Like the movie, yes, they talk about the different programs, how it could help. But what is really important in the movie is to see how the parents were involved and how they were helping using big vocabulary, words, they were talking to them. They were showing TV show, like simple the TV show to talk. So that was making the difference. It wasn't the program itself. Like my own kids are very different. My older one is born, talking right away. He couldn't stop talking. Very young age. He was, about reading all the time. Facts, annoying everybody. My younger, she was more of an artist. She wouldn't talk until 3 years old, but she was observing, she was looking, and then at 6 months, she was climbing up a park and then running, dancing at 8 months. And I knew already they were different. When my son was in elementary school, I know he was doing the Common Core program, which was a big critique for a lot of people. When I did that, I was like, wow, if I learned math that way when I was young, that would have been perfect for me. I don't have any memory. That doesn't work for me, the old type. So that was working. So I was like, well, this is great, but that doesn't mean we need to change everything for that program, forget the old style, because you're going to see up thinking, all those kids now are progressing, but then in some way, if you go to one direction, the kids who have more memory that need that other style will go down. So changing the program is not the solution. The solution would be to have all those different programs, but that's not a reality. There's too many, all the teacher cannot take care of all those kids, but we have to be aware that there is different kids, different style, and that's why it's appreciated. One other thing, because I'm jumping, that's okay. We need to be, caring about our kids, and also, I know in middle school, they stopped giving homework. So for us parents, it's really hard to follow what our kids doing. So I know some teacher, when they still do that, is okay, I can still following, but I know my daughter is now algebra in 8th grade. I don't remember none of that. I can't help her because I have zero clue with that. But I wish I could have been able to follow the homework and be with her to help her with that, because I think that's what will help in the big picture. Sorry.
Mr. Joseph Gato.
All right. So, not as well-versed as my mother, sorry. Good evening, my name is Joseph Gato and I'm a senior at NFA main campus. Over these last few months, I've heard from my family and my peers about the goings-on at these board meetings. Recently, I've attended a couple myself to kind of get a better understanding of the issues at hand, particularly the unfair distribution of pink slips to many administrative and faculty members in our district, done by an interim superintendent who should not have the ability to make these large-scale firings at such a short time after her inauguration. It doesn't really sit right with me. However, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not nearly well-versed enough in this. At the last Board of Education meeting I attended, I witnessed a few shocking behaviors from some of our Board of Education members, from attempting to prevent our senior class president from completing his speech, to disrupting and escorting out a member of the community simply for naming members of an aforementioned wrong administrative faculty, which she had the ability to do in the context spoken, but even if she didn't, she could have received a warning instead, which you guys did earlier, instead of the clear exercise of censorship you guys did by kicking her out. While I may not completely understand the politics of the Board of Education debacle, I can clearly see that there is an issue with the board's seemingly consolidated majority, in which people whose opinions do not align with the Board of Education's majority input can be censored at these public board meetings. This sets a very bad precedent in which the opinions of the few who agree with the board's current conduct have higher value than the opinions of the public, and that any opinions of any CSD families that do not align with the board's can be ignored. If the interests of the greater public are in a minority, because those board members who represent their interests are in a minority, then the board is demonstrably unfair and functionally useless. How can we be led to believe in a board meant to serve the students of Newburgh and New Windsor and their families if it continues to work solely in the interests of its own majority? Even as an uninformed student, I can clearly tell when a board is making decisions that benefit the community and making decisions that benefit its majority. And censoring people who have differing opinions is tyrannical, disrespectful, selfish, and simply wrong. I'd like to end this whole spiel with a simple request. Do better. Do better for your community, your proponents, your dissidents, all of Newburgh and New Windsor's families and their children, on all of your students, who all have voices that deserve to be heard, not silenced. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffrey Woody.
Good evening to Ms. Peterson and the cabinet, Ms. Bello and the board members, to our scholars, and to the community at large. My name is Jeffrey Woody, and I am a proponent of the Newburgh Enlarged City School District. While attending NFA, I was aware of and took advantage of many of the opportunities that the NECSD offered throughout my secondary education. I was the treasurer for my senior class, a part of the National Honor Society, boys chorus, mixed chorus, a cappella, madrigals, NISMA, all-county chorus, and area all-state chorus. During my senior year, I'm not proud to say this, but in October of 1979, we experienced the last race riot that was so bad that the SWAT team was called in to help restore order at the high school's main campus. As a community member, we were able to have conversations, heal, and move forward. In June of 1980, 805 students or thereabouts graduated with either a local diploma or a Regents diploma. I don't recall what the graduation rate was then, but from 2003 to 2024, the graduation rate has ranged from 62% to 82%, with 82% being in 2016 and 2018, which gives us a 22-year average of 73.9%. So these numbers are not new. These numbers have been around. So while I agree that every student should be able to read by the time they graduate, I also believe that every student should be literate in math by the time that they graduate. Their success in these areas would, I believe, give them the necessary tools and competence to be successful not only in school, but even beyond academy field. As a community, we are currently operating in a very divisive environment, which is counterproductive to our core values, which are present, we are inclusive, everyone's voice is heard. From what I've witnessed, we are not being inclusive because everyone's voice is not being heard. Past, we are resilient, bouncing back from every challenge. Yes, we are resilient and we should learn from the early 1980s. We should have some very open and honest conversations. We should heal from the pain that we are all dealing with. We should bounce back from these challenges and move forward for the sake of our scholars. Future, we will continue to grow together. As we did after the early 80s, we will be able to grow together as a unified community when we face our current challenges. In the not-so-distant future, we will celebrate the dedication of our new CTE building, which will give our scholars many more wonderful opportunities to be successful beyond academy field as they graduate with their respective credentials. At a previous board meeting, someone compared our graduation rate to that of Middletown's. It just might be worth having a conversation with our neighbors to find out how they turn things around and what strategies they employ to effect change on the other side of the county. It would not cost any money to have a conversation or to borrow best practices from our neighbors to possibly see the results that we are so desperately in need of. As the Go Back community, I appeal to each of us tonight. Let us reflect on our conduct and the impact that it is having on our scholars as well. If I am honest, and we should all be honest tonight, both sides have said some very harmful things that do not lend themselves to healing or collaborating. Let us be examples to our scholars and mission-minded as we educate and empower them to build their futures and support their community. Thank you.
Miss Tracy Wallace.
Hi. What do I want to address? I would like to address a few things. One, I attended a code of conduct event here at the Newburgh and Large City School District. And we worked with our community on strategizing different solutions. And who was there was me as a parent, Snug was there, administrative was there, I actually work with administrative, even though I can't name names. There were teachers, together with students, together with board members. A board member was also there who attended this, and this event showed how we can come together as a community to point out all the things that are going wrong and all the things that we can do together to make it right. And I really believe that if any of you went to that event again, you would see that there are a lot of policies that make it very difficult for students to excel in our district. And I have looked over Monroe Woodbury and their policies, and their graduation rate is 94%. I've looked over Middletown's policies, which their graduation rate is 93%. And what are they doing different? They're meeting the children where they're at. They're getting resources from their community, they're relying on the resources from their community, and they're working with their community. I'm not saying that every single board member has to get together. That would be impossible. We all have different views. But I am asking, and I've asked this before, if you look at your district and there is a history, I even looked up before COVID, were the rates in Newburgh higher? Were the rates in Newburgh any better when we had phonics, when we had any different kinds of education? And there's always a problem with the Newburgh and Large City School District, no matter how many times we have changed our curriculum. And I've seen our curriculum changed many times if we look at our history. And I'm digging and digging and digging and looking for answers. And the answers are right in your community, as many people said. There are many people and there are many organizations in your community that we should be working with. I even went to a town hall in the city of Newburgh and spoke to the chief of police. And I said, do you have a DARE program? Are you working with the New Bergen Large City School District? Right now, the crime rates for young individuals are really high. I went to the City of Newburgh Town Hall. What does that say? That says that our students are not in school. Some of our students are not, they're on the streets. Some of our students are not doing well. Where are we meeting these children at? How are we supporting these families? Are these families getting their essential needs met? Are we getting student assessments in? How are the student assessments? How are the family assessments? I saw student assessments on Monroe Woodbury. They have a long list of student assessments, principal assessments. I have not seen any assessments that can show a check and a balance within our district. I see that people want to reform. We need to change the science of reading. We need phonics. That was phonics. That was a whole, I went to the reading event in NFA Maine, and it was phonics. We already know we need phonics. We don't need to change the entire curriculum for that. We need to support these students. And when I spoke on the on-agenda items, when I said we need supports after school, we need supports before school, we need after school, we need during school. We need different types of programs and behavioral too. Like, let's work on not suspending these kids, because when our kids are suspended, the way your suspension, if a child is suspended for 5 days, and I had one this year, going through 2 fights, right? He was suspended for 3 days, and he had to go to NFA Maine for a few hours to get a whole day's worth of work. So I had one child in one fight who lost 2 whole days of school, 3 whole days of school. And I had to teach him things. I had to learn on YouTube to learn how to teach him and help catch him up. There are many students that are being suspended. There are many students that code of conduct is really treating as criminals. There are policies that you really need to look at and not just come here and say, oh, I checked my box. I'm a board member and I came to this meeting. You have to do more than just attending these meetings. You have to, if you really, really want to be a board member and you want to make changes, you have to look at the policies, talk to the kids, and you have to really make those changes and listen to the community. We're not up here to fight with you. We're trying to help each other to give information. We don't want to fight. We want to help our kids.
The last person signed up to speak is Ms. Sade Burks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sade Burks. I'm a resident of the city of Newburgh. I just wanted to commend the students that came up and spoke tonight. They were here at the last board meeting, and at the last board meeting, I watched the students. They asked everyone to turn off put their phones down and put their, look up from their laptops. I watched some board members do it, and then I watched some who just stared at their phone and their laptop and ignored the students. I even watched a board member kindly swipe her index finger across her nose. I watched that same board member get up and walk out and spend about 20 minutes each time she walked out. So how are you getting information from the community and from the students that you claim that you are up here to serve when you are not here to hear that information? I just listened to Tracy talk about the code of conduct meeting that I was in attendance to. She is right. Most of the code of conduct is teaching us how to be reactive to our students, which unfortunately, a lot of children of African American and Spanish speaking communities suffer from reactive strategies. And those children are kicked out of school. Then where are they to go? But some of you current board members wouldn't know that because some of you current board members were not at that code of policy conduct meeting. I also wanted to say thank you to the board member that got up here and spoke and let everyone know what these new Clear Choice Coalition people are up here doing and who is running behind them. And I'm glad you came up here and said it because they're on the same ticket with people that are running behind them again. I'm glad that we have a community member that finally chose to show his face after he repeatedly said online that Clear Choice should have abstained from voting for Sade Burks, and she made her bed and now she has to lie in it. Hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. It's the truth. That's good. Thank you for voting me down, because now I'm running to sit on the Board of Education. So thank you for voting me down. And hopefully, when I'm up here sitting with you guys, we can make sound decisions that won't put this board in a jeopardizing predicament to be sued, because all you guys have done is made decisions that can sue this board, not hiring me, suspending the superintendent, bringing on a superintendent that was on suspension. So I don't know how she comes and sit as a superintendent, because when you're on suspension, you can't even be anywhere on school grounds. So hopefully, if you guys want to be up here as a Clear Choice Coalition, hopefully you guys start making some decisions that's not only about clear people. Thank you.
Okay. Oh,
Mr. McCoy, I did email you on my way over here.
I announced to everybody that I got an email from. Can you tell me your name, ma'am?
Sarah Maida. I have it right
Oh, yeah, Jesus.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate that. Again, name is Sarah Maida. I am a parent of a student who, for the next couple months at least, is in this district. So I have actually not spoken. I've been attending these meetings, and part of the reason is that I think folks who have been doing the speaking are doing such a fabulous job. Part of the reason is that I think the people who need to hear this are not necessarily listening. But I rethought that tonight. Well, really, I rethought that at the last meeting. And the reason that I decided to finally speak up was when I watched the board president, Madam President, bang her gavel at the student body, the senior class president. And shout over him, by the way. He had about 2 sentences left. So then I watched Madam President follow that up by throwing out a community member who was using staff names during her public comment. Both commenters were speaking in support of the district administrators who are expected to lose their jobs if the acting superintendent and speakers throughout public comment have their way. So other speakers in public comment used the names, no issue. The larger context in which this happened, I think, is what's really important here. Board president has, during her entire term, routinely used policies she can't cite to and often gets wrong in an attempt to silence those who disagree with her, while allowing others to break the rules with impunity. At the board meeting 4 weeks ago, so 2 meetings ago, a former board member came to the podium during public comment on non-agenda items and unleashed a racist tirade directed at the audience that she ended after being chastised by the crowd for her unhinged rant when the board president failed to intervene by saying, "This is why the students are the way they are." One board member asked the board president to act and direct the speaker to address the board. Instead, the president let her continue to spew vitriol at the audience for 5 minutes, when the members of the audience really just showed up to watch the board meeting. The district has a policy that does require speakers during public comment direct their comments to the board. If you take the board president's inaction, in this instance at face value, in a vacuum, you might give her the benefit of her lack of mastery of the district policies and Robert's Rules of Order and assume she was unaware of the policy. She's not. She's repeatedly invoked it in previous meetings to silence voices critical of her and the majority voting bloc. And all of you have to do is watch the meetings to see that her selective use of this policies and others has the effect of silencing people of color in our community. This is what institutional racism looks like. It looks like using a policy that's neutral on its face in a way that results in unequal treatment. This is not what effective leadership looks like. And the board president needs to do better. If you can't enforce the rules equitably, then you aren't fit to lead. And if the first thing you think when you hear me say, Madam President, is I'm not a racist, then I'm here to tell you that your intentions don't matter. Your actions do, and your actions are silencing people of color. So next time, please check your biases before you bang your gavel. Effective leaders self-reflect, they examine their biases, they learn, and listen to experts and stakeholders, even those who don't look like them or may disagree with them. Which brings me to a larger point about leadership and what our community deserves from this board and the acting superintendent. What we have at present is not an effective governing body. It's manufactured chaos and dysfunction. We have a majority of 5 board members, none of whom have even served a full year on this Board of Education or any board, it appears from their resumes.
Voting as a block to dismantle our school district with no meaningful input from stakeholders, virtually no transparent communication with the community, and no clear vision of what will take the place of the systems and people they are tearing down. We have an inexperienced board majority who installed an inexperienced acting superintendent into a temporary position less than 3 months ago, making reckless and poorly thought out decisions that have long-term consequences for our district. The most immediate and troubling of these is the decision of the acting superintendent to fire 17 administrators, or 16, we don't really know because nobody knows what's actually going on, which account for 25% of the administration's union. It's impossible for the acting superintendent to have acquired the institutional knowledge to essentially restructure the entire district, leadership of this school district in the time she's been in her role. And a savvy and experienced board would have recognized the need to pump the brakes and give the acting superintendent time to grow into her role. We don't have that here. So I just want to say that this is an absolute, profound failure of leadership. And not only is it reckless, it's callous, it's cruel, and it's tone deaf to the community. The
Your time
cavalier
is up,
attitude-
ma'am.
The cavalier
Your time is up.
attitude of this board majority
Ma'am,
are
your
showing
time
to the
i-
professionals in the back here and others who have dedicated their time is absolutely unforgivable. And I don't
just like Miss Maida.
The 30 minutes is up. I'm sorry. Sorry, Dave. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for legal advice.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Roll call for executive session. Advice from legal counsel, employment history of particular individuals. Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi? Yes. Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes. Okay, on item 4 I'll turn it over to the Deputy Superintendent, Ms. Peterson, for the superintendent's update.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. No, the update first, and then I'll go, I just stood up so I could just stand up once. So we just wanted to take a moment to also welcome Mr. Steven Seeger, our Director of Safety and Security that has joined the district over a month ago. So we welcome, about a month now? Has it been a month? 7 days. It just feels like a month. It feels like a month. So we welcome him to the district, and I know that he'll be updating the community and the board in an upcoming meeting about just his entrance. We're currently working with him to onboard to the district, meet staff, kind of go over some recommendations, and he's working with executive cabinet to kind of do those things now. So in an upcoming meeting, I know that it was asked from the community and for the board for them to meet. We will make sure that that occurs. So in item 4.2, we will be discussing, so in the absence of the acting superintendent, I will present the budget along with the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Kimberly Roaring, the proposed budget for 25-26. So these recommendations for this budget proposal are being made on behalf of the acting superintendent, Dr. Lisa Bourne. So we will go through some of the additions and some other items that we need to make sure the community is aware of so that we can prepare for the fiscal process with for voting and budgeting this year, and for the board to ask any questions or concerns around some of the things that are being proposed within the budget. So on the first slide, yes.
So on the first slide, you have some non-staffing additions that have been proposed in the budget for next year. Some of these were brought forward by different department heads and school buildings. So I just want to take a quick walkthrough. We did have an ask from HR to have some additional funding associated with overtime and substitute expenses. We have proposed backpack scanners for our secondary buildings, 6 in total, 1 in each building. For middle school scoreboards, there was a need identified to replace the existing boards. They're past a point of repair, and to be able to use those facilities, we need to install new boards. Professional development membership by our Fine and Performing Arts Director was requested on behalf of her staff that has been so far approved by the board. Technology asked for a tariff allowance. We are in a period of great unknown in terms of where our costs are going to go, and we want to be able to maintain our replacement cycle. There were some sensory room supplies requested by Temple Hill, some door replacements at Heritage. There's going to be an area of the NFA main campus where lockers will be painted and repaired. We also had a recommendation from our insurance carriers to replace playgrounds at 3 schools, so that's in here. There were some ads by the acting superintendent for kindergarten screening, Wilson Reading, iReady, and Reading League training for a total increase of just under $2 million.
I just also want to reiterate to the board and to the community that the recommendations that Mrs. Roaring just went over was a part of our collaborative process. So when she identifies, backpack scanners, that was a recommendation that was made from our Director of Security at the time regarding operational expenses. So we just want to make sure, as we heard from our budget consultant previously, about our process and making sure that we had a transparent and collaborative process, that the board and the community understands where that is resulting within our budget proposal.
Okay. Next, we had some staffing additions. So there were some requests that came forward when we met with all the building principals and directors for staffing for next year, and that includes E&L teachers. We had requests from 2 building principals to have a .5 added to their building to make sure they were able to meet the needs of their student population for next year. We need to reestablish our IB coordinator so that we can really reinvigorate that program at Horizons, which requires us also to add a foreign language teacher at that building. There were some additional requests for part-time staff in HR and security, and then there were several requests made for special education staff by Mr. Bayer's division to make sure that we can meet the needs of our exceptional learners next year that are outlined here. We also had a request from the building principal at NFA Maine to add some bilingual staff so that she can make sure she's able to meet the needs of the students enrolled there in next year. And some additional teaching staff for social studies, AIS, math. We did have a couple of requests from Mr. Velez. One of them is captured here for a grounds position. This restores the position that was lost this year that's really had some challenges with the department to meet those needs. So we're looking forward to being able to regenerate that position. And then at the bottom, there's some additional items that were brought forward by Dr. Bond, including additional general ed teachers, teaching assistants, executive directors, and an assistant superintendent for C&I.
Again, what I would like to also mention, again, is we could go back to the previous slide, is that some of the recommendation for staff additions that are associated with buildings, that came through the collaborative process of principals talking about their instructional program within their building and what their needs are based on enrollment and based on what they were seeing from their student population.
There were also some proposed reductions. So again, in meeting with the building principals, some of them offered up positions that they did not feel were as necessary as they right-sized their staffing. So for example, here you'll see a reduction in math teachers at South, but we had a creation of an AIS math teacher at South because that's where the need is. We also had reductions for science and social studies from the Heritage Building. We had a reduction of a typist in technology, but that was with the expectation of creating a help desk coordinator position. And then we had several director reductions that were brought forward by the acting superintendent.
So again, some of the staffing reductions were swaps to better operationally and instructionally support the district. So for instance, in technology, there was a need to go to a help desk coordinator. We manage over 20,000 devices, I think, close to. And we were seeing the high level of help desk tickets and the need to have a more specialized staff help control the inventory, which later has has a future impact as we see tariffs and other things go up. We need better management around inventory. The recommendations that were given for principals were based on their master's schedule and enrollment of current utilization of staffing. And they asked for other positions within their building. So as Ms. Roaring just stated, a math teacher, there's reductions, but on the other side, Mr. Phoenix felt that it was appropriate to have a social worker and an AIS content specialist to support student intervention.
So we shared this with you as you've been moving through the budget process, that we had some additional needs for out-of-district tuition. Some of that is associated with a net increase of students next year. We are anticipating that number to be 34. Those would be incoming kindergartners. We also have recalibrated our estimate for the end of this year for out-of-district tuition, and that had an additional adjustment of $1.8 million that we shared out with the board back on March 25th to make us whole next year. So right now, there's a total proposed budget of $378,695,404, or an increase of $19.7 million, or 5.5%. The revenue projection, you will note here, does tie, it equals, the expense projection that was just shared. This does include a flat tax levy, which we've said throughout the budget development process. There's no tax levy increase proposed at this time. We did acknowledge an increase in projected excess cost aid, and there's been a lot of questions around that. We have seen our actual revenue in this category, $24 million 2 years ago, $26 million last year, projected at $27 million this year as we get our state aid information from the state ed department. So we did increase that expectation next year, and yes, it is substantially above what the governor is continuing to project for us, but that's what we're actually seeing, and we feel it was responsible to acknowledge that revenue as we plan. There is an increase in projected utility taxes, as well as continued use of appropriated fund balance and restricted reserves. At this time, we plan on pulling in from the workers' comp and the unemployment reserve. This is the line-by-line revenue, with the total again at the bottom of $378.69 million. You'll see in there, there's a use of $7.87 million again, almost equal to what we planned this year in terms of use of appropriated fund balance, but we have backed off the use of appropriated reserves. Again, that's tied to recognizing an increase in excess cost aid. So revenue variables. The state has still not done their budget. They have no projected timeline as to when they will. So we are using, with the exception of excess cost aid, the governor's projected numbers. It has landed fairly close to that in the last couple of years. We're not anticipating a significant increase beyond that at this time. There are still a lot of unknowns around federal aid coming into next year, and what we are being told is that the president may be proposing his budget in May, well after we do ours. So we are waiting to hear what the impacts may be on title and IDEA grants specifically. We've also been notified by state ed that we need to be using any carryover funds we have in these areas. So that's really what we're using to plan our summer program, which Ms. Peterson has been talking with you about. The biggest variable we have is around our school lunch program, and we wanted to provide some more numbers here to make it maybe a little bit more understandable in terms of what that means for us. So 79% of that program is funded by federal reimbursement, which is $10 million of their $12.8 million budget. Our state revenue is just over $500,000, and they have planned use of appropriated fund balance themselves of 1.7. Any change around community eligibility, increased scrutiny and compliance around verifying of income for free and reduced price lunch, or reimbursement rates will have a significant impact on this program.
So we've been really watching this very closely because we know that our community really utilizes our free and reduced lunch program. So I feel like every single time there's something goes off in relation to that, Mrs. Roaring, myself, and Mrs. Jackson are on it, reading it, because we know that that is something that's going to be big. And it could have a huge impact on our community. So if there are any changes, we will make sure that the board and the community are aware, because there may need to be a decision made regarding how we are going to fund this $12 million expenditure for the district. So there may need to be a choice depending on what the federal budget is going to bring about.
Okay, we've also talked a lot about the title and the IDEA grants and those being threatened for funding. So we wanted to really put some context to that as well. So here you see the total of those grants is just over $9.4 million, but they fund over 52 positions. So that is fairly significant. When we look at the IDEA grants specifically, these are largely mandated services. If those grant funds were to go away, we'd have to figure that out. So Mr. Rothman has been presenting with us on Contract for Excellence and the community school set-aside, which I will cover for him this evening. So, we've talked a little bit about the fact that this mandate has been going up. You'll see here again at the bottom of the slide that we had a 20% increase, a 40% increase, and a 24% increase, again projected next year. I do want to be clear, because I don't think it was clear in the budget consultant presentation earlier. This is not additional money. What this roughly equals is the increase in our foundation aid. So what we got in foundation aid, the state has said, you're going to take that money and spend it just this way. That's all you can do with it. So that is really important as we're planning how we can manage to continue to meet those compliance regulations as our general purpose aid is being directed at this point.
And I just want to point out for the Contract for Excellence, the budget consultant also brought about in his report that we did take a look and we realigned this to ensure that we were really making sure that the funds were going to the neediest schools, and that we were really looking at what positions are needed to support students.
So this mandated set-aside is expected to be just under $22 million. We've talked a lot about how that's prescriptively done. Once the state budget is passed, SED will notify us what that exact number is, and they will then proceed to tell us how much we have to allocate to each school. So there will be refinement done to this after we finalize the budget. These are some of the positions that are proposed to be paid in there. Many of them are existing this year. Community schools is the other set-aside that we have within foundation aid. So again, this is not new money. This is just restricted use of general purpose aid. It's a little over $800,000. It's been that amount for a very long time. This has not changed. It will continue to support 2 psychologists, 3 social workers, and 3 parent coordinators next year. We've also been talking with the board about the capital propositions that the board has approved to add to the ballot in May. So we have the one for green energy, which we're really excited about, having the opportunity to seek out those grant dollars with NYSERDA to make these changes at Fostertown and Gardnertown and really improve those systems and the quality of air for those school buildings. And we also have the NFA North auditorium renovation, so that will bring that auditorium in a more consistent or equitable way that the main auditorium has been renovated a number of years ago. That will be funded out of the capital reserve, so there's no tax impact. That's straight cash payment. If the board agrees, the community now has to agree with us, and if they say yes, we will proceed. We are scheduled to have our budget hearing on May 13th, and the vote is on May 20th. So that's the end of our presentation. If there's any questions for us.
Ms. Boucher.
Can we go back to the reduction in staffing slide?
So the additions or the reductions?
Can we start with the reductions?
Okay.
Okay, so you noted that and I have a few questions, so I'm just gonna kind of go on one tangent and then we can move on. So for technology, you had noted that there was to be the deletion of the typist, but an ad for an IT help desk, is the help desk in the ads?
It is not at this time. It was removed.
Okay, so personally, if that was a request, I think that it should be added into the ads. That's a personal opinion. I also think that if the principals of each school noted that this is, their recommendation and need, I understand that, but I don't agree with the, director of communication and some of these director level positions. So can we go through, like the ones that are grant funded that have no impact? Is there a reason for those being recommended to be removed?
Those recommendations were explicitly made by the acting superintendent. I don't have any more information on those recommendations. We've simply noted here that they are grant funded, so it doesn't affect the budget either way.
Okay, and same with the pupil personnel director?
That is not the same. That is
Okay.
actually part of that contract for excellence set aside. That is part of the general fund budget.
Okay, so what's the
thought process behind reducing that position.
Again, that was a recommendation from the acting superintendent. I don't have any more information to share.
Okay. So yeah, I would personally, I think anything director of communications and below, I wouldn't agree with reducing. And then I would want to make sure that if the help desk ad was asked for, that it's added into those additions.
Thank you.
Mr. Bear.
Thank you. To your question, I just want to qualify something. So, for example, in my division, I do the 611 and 619 grants. 611 is federally funded monies for students 5 to 21, 5 to 21 and 6 to 21, and then the 619 is a smaller grant for 4 to 5-year-olds. My two directors are in those grants. One is partly in the preschool, with the 4 to 5-year-old, and then the rest of him is in the school-aged. I had to use carryover money because we had such a tight budget year last year, and I depleted our carryover money. I can't sustain that. We kind of kicked the can for a year because these positions were viable. If you're going to elevate those positions to executive director positions, the grant can't sustain the extra money. I can promise you that. So that additional money in those other positions that are on the ad side, that cost a lot more than these. I don't know when the money's in. It's not accounted for in the general budget right now.
Okay. Ms. Boucher, Victoria.
So I agree that Director of Communications down needs to be revamped. I don't believe they should be reduced, but I want to specifically talk about School Transformation Instruction Specialist. That's regarding math and literacy, and if that's our biggest push, I want to know why it's being reduced.
Again, that was a recommendation made by the acting superintendent. I don't have any more information.
Ms. Boucher.
Okay. Can I just answer some of that question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I can say is that, we have an instructional issue in this district. We need to support our teachers in professional development. And that's an essential part of what these roles do on a daily basis. We have a wonderful staff, but they need to be supported. And we really need to ensure that they have those tools to be the best they can be in front of their students every day. And that's what these roles do. That's what their job is, to look at instruction, to teach best practices, to research standards and resources, and try to advocate.
Mr. Howard.
So what was the mindset to replace, who was going to do this work with all of these reductions?
We can't answer, these are the recommendations of the superintendent, the acting superintendent. So I can't answer that. What I can tell you is what they're currently doing now. So if you ask me what the director of communications, I can tell you what that role does now. I don't know in the new proposition what that person or who would be doing that work. I can't answer that question.
Okay, so I would agree with my two colleagues. From Director of Communications on down, I'm not comfortable with those reductions.
Ms. Boucher.
So I think the ask would be, if we were to add these back into the budget, being Director of Communications down, what monetarily that means for added cost. And then I think, I don't know how other people would vote, but that would be a discussion on changing that. And then if we go to the additions, is there any then, and this is a question, not a, like, you don't need to answer me right now, but to ponder, is if we're adding those back in, do any of the staffing additions become redundant based off of positions that are already existing? And then what those would be to then be removed from the addition to then create a balanced budget, and per what Mr. Baer just said, right, that there's currently in the ad, executive director for exceptional learners, and the grant can't fund 3 of those and the current directors that exist. So would that be considered then a redundant position if we keep, the ads? I don't know if that's a clear synopsis of the ask.
So I do want to clarify, I think what Mr. Baer said is that he can't cover any of those executive director positions in the grants. We're looking at whether or not the director positions can stay in that grant depending on what carryover he may have access to.
The ones that are currently
Yes, the ones that are current in there. So
Okay.
the executive director salaries are projected to be higher than the current director salaries. So the grant is not able to sustain that
Okay, so I think
expense.
as a board, we need monetarily what that equates to, so that we know if we need to up the final budget number and how we would then fund that, or if we're keeping it as it is and figuring out where we pull the money from elsewhere. So I think we need to assess that a little bit further.
Let me go back to your first question. Let me go back to your first question. So your first question was, if you keep some of the director's position, would there be redundancy in some of the ads? That was the first question that you had. And the answer to that is yes. There's going to be redundancy if we keep some of these positions. Now, there also all the time, administration does come to the board and say that there's a need, right? Or there's something that we're seeing based on the vision that we're seeing in our data that may need to be changed. That also occurs. It occurs all throughout the year. But if I say I'm going to keep all these directors, then I have these three executive directors, the three for CNI. I have an assistant superintendent. Some of that work is a little redundant. Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. Could you tell me what a pupil personnel service director's responsibility is? And also,
What?
the assistant superintendent exceptional learners, that's a contractual position, isn't it?
Okay, so not going to what was the first part of the question?
Tell me the job description of the PPS.
Okay, so pupil personnel is very near and dear to my heart. That's how I started in the district. Student support. It's oversight of guidance, school counseling, SEL programs, intervention, crisis management. So that role is a lot to do within a district that is as high need. So that is a very, I can't even express to you, having done that job, how important and how needy that position is, and Mr. Bear is going to add.
Mr. Bear?
Ms. Peterson and I fight over the opportunity to talk about this because we both are passionate about it. So the current PPS director also is the one who helps to roll out our Panorama platform around student success, providing interventions. He's been working with individual buildings to understand the platform, how to use it, how to design interventions for kids out of that, how to put groups together. So Panorama has all of our district data, our academic data, and our attendance data all in one place for teachers to look at. He's built that out. That leads to the other part. If you remember, Mr. Jernigan spoke about our new multi-tiered system of support. That goes hand in glove with Panorama. He's building out buildings looking at student need and developing interventions accordingly, which we refer to as Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. That is a very elaborate really responsibility here. Aside from all the other things that Ms. Peterson described, he single-handedly is going around and helping to really ramp up those different systems.
But I think it's even, as we argue about this, it's even deeper. You have to support the student, you have to support the staff that support the students with the highest needs the most. Our counselors, our school counselors, some of the psychologists, they need training and support, and that person is in charge of that oversight. So, that's what that role does.
So what was the rationale to reduce this position?
I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question. Because I don't know I'm not sure what the rationale was for that.
Victoria?
So as a board, do we need to give specifics on what we want to take out or change and have you work on to revamp?
Yeah, that's going to be essential based on the final proposed budget from the acting superintendent. So if there's certain things, I've heard certain things where there has been, I think if we just start with the additions, are you in agreement with all these additions?
No. I don't know how that works here.
Mackenzie?
So I think we need to know what's redundant if we're not removing the reductions, because for example, it seems like an ENL teacher, if that was asked for, that would make sense to keep. But if we're not removing the director for exceptional learners, then we wouldn't necessarily need an executive director for exceptional learners, because it would seem that they would do the same job. So we just need to know what's redundant, and I think if there's a recommendation of redundancy based off of what's not being removed, then that, I think, would be the discussion of what additions get taken off.
So the board is asking for my recommendation. I
Yes.
just want to be very clear. This is my recommendation to the board.
I don't know if we need to take a majority aye, but that's what I'm asking.
Okay. Victoria?
So then, can we add an item to the agenda? I want to add an item to the agenda.
Can I have a motion to add an item to the agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Point of order, can you read what you're adding, ma'am?
Oh.
Yes. Be it resolved that the board hereby directs the administrative cabinet to prepare the following staffing changes to the proposed budget for board review and action. A reduction from proposed and stay Executive Director of Exceptional Learners, 3.0 FTE, Executive Director of CNL, 3.0, Assistant Superintendent CNI, P2, 1.0, as well as the reduction positions. So the science teacher through the typist, we would keep, and we would get rid of the other reductions.
So from the bottom of that, so to about you only want the reduction of the science teacher, the social studies teacher, the art teacher, the math teachers, the 2.0 FTEs at South?
Correct.
Okay.
And the typist if necessary, correct.
Can I ask one clarifying question on that? I think one of the things that we heard from Ms. Boucher was that that typist was to be a swap for the help desk coordinator that's not currently on the list. Is it the will of the board for us to include that? Because we would need to know that
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Yes. The typist.
Mr. Bear?
So, I mean, this highlights to me kind of how we've approached budget for the 10 years I've been here. It's a highly collaborative process. We go through this together, and we bring you our rationales for each of these. It's a long, protracted process that starts pretty much November, December. So to be asked, what about certain things in here, without any insight, because we've not collaborated, so this is very hard for me to answer the question. But the point I want to make is, we do this the way we do it because we want to be responsible, and we understand the interconnectivity of different areas. At the end of the day, we have to be fiscally responsible, we have to meet student needs. My area especially has been criticized the most lately. I don't know where the public narratives come from that we withhold services to children. We do not. We do not, and I'll say it over and over again, we do not withhold services from children. But we have shortages that I've been very public about, and if I can't find a person, I can't fill that position. That's a very difficult moral problem for me that I've been trying to resolve in my role. When you mention 18 teaching assistant positions, who would argue against that? It makes total sense, right? We want adults in front of our children. We have a significant shortage, which has been reported to you as a board over and over again, in teaching assistants. We currently have a number of special education TA vacancies now that we're trying to fill. HR has done active recruitment to try to find teaching assistants. You add 18 positions next year, I promise you, you're gonna have a lot more parents getting up there asking why my kid is not getting the TA, because there just will not be enough, and TAs generally pick, because it's a hard thing to do special ed, they pick the general ed position first. So our kids are the ones who get shortchanged. So while it makes total sense to have them if they're available, they're not available. You're putting the district in a very difficult position when you make that one of the asks. I promise you it's going to be a problem for you and for me, or anybody who sits in my chair a year from now, to try to figure out how to get these kids' needs met.
So I think, I don't know if you wanted to ask a question to that?
Yeah, so.
You didn't answer the second part of my question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Howard. What was the second part?
The assistant superintendent exceptional learners, I asked, isn't that a contractual position?
Yes, it is.
Ms. Boucher?
So how is that being reduced?
I can't answer that question. I'm not sure what that recommendation was for, but it is a contracted position.
So,
And you don't know the rationale behind the reduction,
I
the
can't
ask of
answer that.
reduction?
Yeah, I don't know the rationale for that.
can I just respond real quick? So I think the point of the conversation is that there are positions on here that we need. There are reductions on here that we need. And again, the collaboration comes with tell me what you need. That's the whole point. So
Well, I think that within the teaching assistants ads, if you look up, Mr. Baird did ask for teaching assistant special ed 4. So that is in there. He did request for more assistant, for teaching assistants, but the 18, I'm not sure where that request came from. That was not asked from building level leaders.
Okay, so specifically, when you discussed what was asked from building level, keep those. The ones in reduction, again, from Director of Communications down to Assistant Superintendent of Sectional Learners, they need to be retained, not reduced.
Got it.
Does that make more sense?
Yes, no, you
Okay.
got it.
Ms. Boucher?
So I'd also like to say that in the ads, right, I would rather over budget for what we could potentially need, right? So if they're, for the 18 teaching assistants, right, we have until June 30th to decide if that's, where the money would be allocated to, but I think that I would personally like to see the numbers for if we keep the teaching assistants and pretty much everything on this edition, with the exception of the executive director for exceptional learners, because I think that becomes redundant with the reductions that we would no longer be reducing. But I think that monetarily, we should plan for if everything else would stay in that ad, so that we have a number of what that looks like.
I get what the ask is. So so during COVID, we did have teaching assistants in the first grade, okay? So the amount across district that we needed for that was 16, okay? So are you asking me to say you need to project with 16 teaching assistants in there?
Or 18, but 18 is the number on here. So if the current budget, right, the number that we have, the 378, accounts for all of these ads in it. It doesn't account for the reductions,
Correct.
right? So
So I want to be clear, it
Yeah.
doesn't account for the add back of the reductions. The
Correct.
reductions are in that number.
Yeah, so if we're adding back in the reductions of director down on that list, and then the only ad so I think that, and it'll be a board decision, right, this is a personal opinion, I think we should plan for all of these ads except for the executive director for exceptional learners, because we're adding back in the reduction. So everything else would stay on this list except for those 3 positions, what that number would look like.
So it's 7 positions, because you have executive director of exceptional learners, which you just told us, which is 3. The executive directors for CNI, which is 3, and the assistant.
Yeah, I'd like to see the allocated amount for those to stay in the budget, so that they're allocated. We
So-
don't have to necessarily keep those positions, because we don't have to vote on that until June.
If you keep those positions within your budget,
They're redundant?
they're redundant. Some of them are
Okay.
redundant, but that is an actual
1.5.
$1.5 million, because I forgot the benefits. So
Okay.
1.5 if you keep them in.
So if we keep those and it's 1.5, but is that adding back in the reductions as well, or that's just these 7 positions?
That's the cost of those positions.
These 7?
Yes.
Okay. And then, okay, so we just then would need the number of adding the reductions back in, what that would be, and then if we add in the IT help desk person.
Okay, so just to make sure we all have it clear, because I'm sure that David is working over there hard. You're asking administration to prepare with these adjustments in staffing for the 25-26 budget. You would like for us to keep the additions with the exception of the 6 executive directors and the assistant superintendent.
And add the help desk.
And you would like for us to add the help desk. And you would like for us to only keep the reductions from the science teacher to the typist, everything below you want us to include in the budget. Is that?
Just to be clear, those teaching positions that are being reduced are redundant in the schools. They're not needed.
They were converted into other positions. So for instance,
These are the positions that the principals brought forward as not needed. In some case, they were converted. So as we mentioned in South, there was a reduction of 2 math teachers. They created an AIS math teacher on the ad and a social worker on the ad. So it was a swap. So it wasn't
Okay.
really a true reduction, but those were what they brought to us.
So then I would say yes. I don't know if we have to do it.
Mackenzie?
Yeah, I think the overall question with that is, with these reductions, no one is being fired or like let go.
That's an HR question.
That's, yeah. I'm not, I don't, I can't answer. That would be a.
Mary Ellen,
I
could
don't
you?
know, I'm not sure. We would have to go through the
ask
budget.
for- I don't think I can discuss that on the open floor.
Okay.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. So the Assistant Superintendent, CNI, P2, so we're going to a 3 Assistant Superintendents for Curriculum Instruction, P2, 3, 8, 9, 12?
So those are the recommendations that were brought forth by the assistants, through the acting superintendent. Dr. Bourne brought those positions. What the board is telling me and Mrs. Roaring right now is that you would like for us to maintain what we currently have without the additions.
Correct.
And you're going to revisit that conversation later. That's what I'm hearing from the board.
Okay,
Correct.
all right, thank you.
Can Mr. Shaw read the actual resolution again? All right.
Okay, the add resolution, which might go into the agenda as 4.1.1, would read, resolve that the board hereby directs the administrative cabinet to prepare the following staffing changes to the proposed budget for board review and action. Reductions from the proposed add staff, that was one of the slides. The reductions would be Executive Director of Exceptional Learner, 3.0 FTEs, Executive Director of CNI, 3.0 FTEs, Assistant Superintendent, CNI P-2, 1.0. There would be an add there of Help Desk, 1.0 FTE. With respect to the other slide, there would be on reduction of positions, it would be the science teacher down through the typist and no other reductions.
There's a motion and a second on that add, ma'am. You would need to take a roll call on the add to the agenda.
Roll call.
Roll call to add. Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Now you need to entertain a motion to vote on this item, ma'am.
Can I have a motion to vote on 4.1.1?
Second.
Roll call.
This is a roll call on what was just added to the agenda. Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
One to postpone action.
Okay, so we have, next, 4.3. 4.2. 4.2, I'm sorry.
4.2 is the budget presentation we
Oh,
just did.
4.2 is the budget presentation, but you guys had just given us revisions, so we've kind of done that. So now we're on 4.3.
Somebody, point of order, ma'am. 4.2 is going to have to be put on the floor and then voted on, tabled. There's going to have to be action on 4.2.
Postpone to a meeting.
Can I have a motion on resolution 4.2? And a second.
Second.
The motion to
Roll call.
Point of order. So this is a motion to postpone?
Yeah.
Motion to postpone, yes.
Thank you. Motion to postpone the general fund budget adoption
Until when?
Until a day this week.
A day this week when the deputy superintendent can get back to us with what we requested be done.
By Friday,
Wait, we have, yeah.
With a deadline on the 25th.
correct.
Thursday.
So, we're working on it, so, I mean, we have to do it by law.
If I can take a roll call on the postpone, there's gonna have to, then you're gonna have to let us know when you're gonna meet. Right?
Motion to postpone.
So this is the roll call to postpone until a date to be determined. Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay? Yes. Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Miss Politi?
Yes.
Miss Christine Bello?
Yes.
Miss Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Miss Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Miss Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Motion second and then postpone. Motions
Mackenzie?
4-3.
Would also like to make a motion on 4.3 to postpone because that's directly correlated to the adjustments to 4.2.
So I think we have to entertain that first. We have to put it on the floor.
Motion second.
Can I have a motion
Second.
and roll call? This
Now
is
I'd like to make a motion to postpone 4.3 to a later meeting date.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Miss Politi?
Yes.
Miss Christine Bello?
Yes.
Miss Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Miss Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Miss Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Okay, so item,
Point of order.
oh, I'm sorry.
Can we figure out a date that this board's gonna meet? I think you should,
How much time does Deputy Superintendent and the Finance Assistant Superintendent need?
It's Thursday? Friday.
How does that work if we do it on Friday and it's due on Friday, logistically?
Everything goes out on Friday.
Yeah, it's,
So generally, we file by the end of business day, so it would probably require an earlier meeting on Friday, or you would do it on Thursday evening?
If in fact you can come back with our requests, I think that Thursday would be
better.
good.
Point of order, for the sake of time, can we plan this via email and move on with the agenda?
if the time of the meeting is gonna be any other time other than 6:30, there's gonna have to be a resolution approved by the board tonight directing what time we're gonna meet and the date.
Do we have a quorum for Thursday at 5:30?
There would have to be a motion
That
and a
would be
second
no.
and then see.
Do we have a quorum?
I could be here for 5:30.
I can be here for 5:30.
I can do 5:30.
I can do 5:30.
I cannot do 5:30.
Can we just suspend the time for the next special meeting so we don't have to pick a time? You know, we have a little more flexibility, but agree to meet at Thursday, you know what I mean, and still gives the 24 hours? I don't know. Maybe I'm not making sense.
I'm following you. If the meeting's gonna be any time other than 6:30, the board has to vote on that tonight.
Can I also remind everyone, we technically have a policy meeting scheduled for 6 PM on Thursday.
We can postpone that till the first Thursday before the first regular meeting of the next month. We can make it for 6:30 on Thursday.
Can you pull a quorum right now for 6:30 on Thursday then?
So is the policy meeting at 6?
It's supposed to be.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay.
But then technically, if we have it at 6:30, we don't have to figure that out right now, but.
Anything else you do?
Hard stop now.
So there'll be a special meeting of the board on Thursday at 6:30. Are we still having policy?
No.
Okay. So there will not have to be a special resolution If the Thursday special meeting will be at 6:30 to adopt the budget.
Okay, so, so Mr. Gawker is here to present the Newburgh Free Library budget. I think the presentation, Jim, is one of the attachments for the 25-26 fiscal year. So, Mr. Gawker.
All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, members of the cabinet, members of the community. I'm Ben Gawker. I'm talking too loud here. Newburgh Free Library Director, and I'm pleased to present our budget for fiscal year 2026. So, I'll get it up here in a second. All right. I realize I'm getting old, I need glasses, and you realize you're getting really old when you forget your glasses and have to bring your wife's glasses, so forgive me. Okay. So before we talk about the budget, we want to talk about what drives the decisions we make when we're developing the budget. And these come from our mission and the goals at the library. Now, the mission of the Newburgh Free Library is to inform, enrich, and inspire people of all ages. And we strive to accomplish this by providing innovative, customer-centered services, collections, resources, programming, and technology, having a building that's reimagined to meet the needs of the community, expanding community awareness with a focus on outreach, investing in our staff through skill development and training, and creating a system of sustainable and diverse support. You can scroll down to the next slide there, or advance it, however. Okay, so at the last meeting, you approved our annual report to the state. That was for fiscal year 2024. We're rounding the corner on fiscal year 2025, but let's look back at the numbers from 2024. We had over 19,000 registered cardholders within the school district, our service area. We had over 150,000 people walk through the library doors this past year. We had over 1,200 on-site programs with over 11,000 children and adults attending. We had 268 summer reading program sessions with over 1,700 people attending. The total circulation of all physical materials, books, magazines, DVDs was over 100,000 items, and the total circulation of all e-materials was over 60,000 items. We had 229 early literacy sessions with over 4,000 people attending, over 100 adult literacy and ESL sessions with 745 people attending. And I'd just like to say we've really made this a focus, and all literacy programs saw an increase in both the number of sessions and attendances over the last fiscal year. We had over 18,000 public internet computer sessions and over 140,000 wireless sessions. And looking at the statistics up to today for fiscal year 25, everything is trending up. So it's looking good. Syracuse University, their iSchool, their School of Library and Information Science, has a true value library calculator. You can kind of put in all of these statistics, number of circs, reference transactions, printouts, Wi-Fi sessions, and it'll give you a dollar value. So our budget is roughly about $6 million. Plugging all these figures into Syracuse University's true value calculator for library services gives us a true library value in Newburgh Library of about $12 million. So it's a pretty good return on investment. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And some highlights from the year. Today it was actually the 1-year anniversary for a town branch. We're out there this morning. We had day-long activities, programs, crocheted bookmarks that you could get. In the last year that the branch has been open, we've seen nearly 10,000 visitors and have circulated over 14,000 items. Some of the furniture might need to be cleaned. Kids have been jumping on it, but we'll get to that. All right, next slide. As I mentioned, we've been focusing on literacy, and we're doing it both families, adult literacy, early literacy, and teens. You can see a picture here of our Teen Battle of the Book Champions. This is a competition, it's kind of College Bowl style, that's run by the Ramapo Catskill Library System Consortium, of which we're the central library. The kids had to read 8 books, and then they competed in a trivia battle. In the middle is our monthly Ujima Early Literacy Program. This is funded in part by the Friends of the Library. And it's run by a volunteer, Melinda Ware, who's invaluable to the library. And we often bring authors in. Here you can see Stephanie Seals. Her book, My Daddy's a Cowboy, just won the Coretta Scott King Award and was a Caldecott honor. We had close to 45 kids there. You can see a few of them are my misbehaved kids. So kids get to meet authors and they get to come away with a book and build their own library at home. And then Family Reading Day. God willing, it won't rain on Saturday. We're about to have our next one on Saturday. But we see about 500 people coming through. We work closely with the district. We have literacy tables, activities, games. Kids walk away with books, and we do library card registration. Next slide, please. This year, we also work closely with the district in applying for and receiving the first ever National Endowment for the Arts Big Read Grant for the district and the library. We had a successful kickoff event. We've been doing monthly programming, hip hop and poetry workshops. We had programs at Mount St. Mary's College about demystifying poetry. And the author, David Thomas Martinez, is going to be traveling up from New York City on the 30th to do a reading and a talk here at the library, and the next day go to NFA Maine to meet with students to talk about his life in literature and how to become a published poet. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide. We had a really successful job fair. I think back in January, we worked with the Department of Labor. This is something we do annually. This past year, we saw 45 employers and over 350 job seekers. Next slide. We also did something this year that I'm particularly proud of, and that you're seeing in a lot of public libraries across the country, usually bigger library systems. Libraries will even have social workers on staff. What we did is we worked with the Delphi University School of Social Work, and we have a master's student in their social work program who's been interning here the last semester. Librarians typically have done this kind of work, putting people in the community in touch with social services, but having a social worker who can dedicate time, we've created discrete room for her to meet with people, to do referrals, and she can really give more in-depth attention to people's needs in the community. Next slide. And what we're seeing over and over again, top 5 services requested: housing, employment, food assistance, just help completing applications. Next slide. But there are other things too, helping with heating and cooling bills, substance abuse referrals, unemployment applications. Our intern we've had has been fantastic. She's here 3 days a week. We'll be really sad to see her go in May, but we have another fantastic applicant who will be starting in the fall. And we're looking at this as kind of a pilot to see if someday we could maybe create a position at the library within our operating budget. But so far so good, and we're really proud of this achievement. Next slide, please. And we've been doing a lot to get out into the community and to bring the community into our doors. We're at the Marasco Center working with seniors, a poetry book discussion. We have a huge Kwanzaa event that Melinda Ware does every year. We received a grant from RCLS to open a lactation center for staff and patrons down in the library. We've been to trunk or treats. We have people come to Family Reading Day. The Friends of the Library have sponsored successful puppet shows where the auditorium's been filled to capacity. We've had story times in Algonquin Park, and we've worked with the city and the district on the NEA Big Read Grant. Next slide, please. And people are noticing what the library is doing. The United Way of Orange and Dutchess counties recognized us for our early literacy work back in the fall. The 43rd Annual Orange County Executives Awards Program recognized our relationship with Melinda Ware and bringing early literacy programs to the community. And in the center, Kate Clark, a fantastic staff member in our community engagement team, and Miss Michelle Wright-Jump from Horizons went down to Washington, D.C. for closing ceremonies of the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature Program. That's Meg Medina in the middle. She came to visit the library at the start of the program, and we were one of only 2 libraries across the nation that were selected for this honor. So locally and nationally, the Newburgh Library is making an impact. Next slide, please. So the numbers, we can only continue to make these impacts with continued support from the community. This year, the tax levy limit adjusted for transfers plus exclusions is just over $6 million. Our proposed levy is going to be less than that by about $80,000 at $5,996,436. So this keeps, next slide please, the increase at about 1.8%, which is down from last year and well below the allowable tax cap levy limit. Next slide please. But this will allow us to continue providing all the services that we provide. We've kind of stepped back and looked at what actual expenses have been and actual revenues have been and really tried to become more accurate in our budget. This is my second year in the budget development process. So I had to look back at previous years, but take a close look and try and be as accurate as possible. And I feel like we're finally getting there. And this year, we're not drawing from our appropriated fund balance, and we're going out for a smaller tax increase than we did the last year. And last slide. Beautiful young kid dancing here in the auditorium. This is your library. That's the budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Peterson?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Gawker because there's been a continual collaboration with the district, whether it's been with our family coordinators and our engagement team, the focus on literacy within your planning, and just the community support in general. So we thank you for that collaboration from the district and making sure that we put literacy first, not just within the district, but within our community.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. And I would like to thank the district in turn too. Everyone knows we have a unique relationship with the school district, and we've really leveraged that in a way that other libraries just don't and can't. And you'll see the proof of that this Saturday. We've been working hand in hand with the Family and Community Engagement team to create an incredible event on Saturday for Family Reading Day. And we do that every year. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm sure you guys don't want to stick around too much longer. I'll get out of here. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Can I have a motion on Resolution 4.4?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Next item is Clerk of the Board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2025 regular meeting.
Can I have a motion? And a second? Roll call?
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
If you're still interested in running for the board, you got a little over a week. Petitions are due in the clerk's office next Wednesday by 5 p.m. That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you. Number 6.1, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
No.
Mr. Duray?
No.
Mr. Howard?
No.
Ms. Politi?
No.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
That motion fails.
Number 7 is the Associate Superintendent, Ms. Leamer, Mrs. Leamer.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, we have items 7.1 through 7.20 for your consideration on consent.
Can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second? Oh, would anyone like to separate any out? Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Number 8, the Associate Superintendent of Finance, Ms. Roaring.
I'm going to cover because Ms. Roaring is going to, she's working on the budget. So tonight, we have items 8.1 through 8.6 for consent and consideration.
Would anyone like to separate any out? Okay, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi? Ms.
Yes.
Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you. Okay, number 9, Assistant Superintendent of Technology, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you. Tonight, the Department of Technology and Data presents items 9.1 for the board's consideration.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
This concludes my items.
Thank you. Item 10, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Elementary, Dr. O'Grady.
Hi, thank you. The Division of CNI, oh, God bless you, Mr. Howard. Woo. Poor Mr. Howard. We present that sneeze for your consideration on consent. All right, so the Division of CNI Elementary present items 10.1 through 10.3 for your consideration.
Does anyone want to separate any out? Can I have a motion?
So, second.
Second? Okay,
Second.
roll call.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Christine Bello?
Yes.
Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher? Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
That concludes my items, thank you.
Okay, number 11, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary, Dr. Soto.
Thank you. So the Curriculum and Instruction Division, secondary level, presents agenda items 11.1 and 11.2 for consent.
Okay. Does anyone want to separate any out? No. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you. Okay, number 12, Assistant Superintendent, Exceptional Learners, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Madam President. The Exceptional Learner Division has item 12.1 for the board's consideration.
Can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Boucher?
I just want to clarify, there's nothing in here except for that paragraph, so is there supposed to be CSE or CPSE? I want to make sure we're voting on something, because there's nothing to vote on. Okay.
Okay. Is that it? Roll call.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello? Yes. Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Roll call.
Ms. Christine Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Thomasina Bello? Ms. Mackenzie Boucher?
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher? Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. DeRay?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.